Did you know that one Egyptian goddess almost wiped out all of humanity in a bloodthirsty rampage that terrified even the gods themselves? The ancient Egyptian pantheon wasn't just about peaceful deities blessing crops and guiding souls. These gods wielded unimaginable power, engaged in brutal family murders, and controlled forces that could literally devour your soul for eternity. The stories behind these divine beings reveal shocking acts of violence, manipulation, and cosmic battles that make modern horror films look tame. But here's what most people never discover. The darkest secrets of these gods explain why Egyptian civilization lasted over 3,000 years, and the terrifying rituals they demanded still influenced our world today. The bloodthirsty lioness who nearly ended humanity. What if the very gods meant to protect humanity decided to destroy it instead? The goddess Sekhmet represents one of the most chilling examples of divine wrath in any mythology. When the sun god Ra grew old and weary of ruling Earth, his human subjects began plotting against him. Ra's response was swift and merciless. He sent his daughter Sekhmet to punish the rebellious humans. But what happened next shocked even Ra himself. Sekhmet, depicted as a fierce lioness breathing fire, unleashed such devastating fury that she began systematically slaughtering every human she encountered. The hot desert winds became known as the breath of Sekhmet, as she breathed fire across the land, turning entire cities into graveyards. The massacre was so intense that the Nile River ran red with human blood. Sekhmet became intoxicated by the taste of blood and the thrill of destruction. She couldn't stop killing. Her bloodlust had consumed her completely. Ra watched in horror as his daughter threatened to exterminate the entire human race. Desperate to save what remained to humanity, Ra devised a cunning plan. He prepared vast quantities of beer mixed with mandrake and the blood of the slain, creating a crimson liquid that looked exactly like blood. When the murderous goddess discovered this blood, she drank greedily, becoming so intoxicated that she could no longer continue her slaughter. The devourer of souls. But what happened to those who failed the god's ultimate test? In the Hall of Two Truths, every soul faced judgment after death. The heart was weighed against the feather of Ammut, goddess of truth and justice. If the heart proved pure, the soul could enter the afterlife. But if it was heavy with sin, something far worse than death awaited. Enter Ammut, the devourer of the dead. This terrifying demon combined the most fearsome aspects of three apex predators: the head of a crocodile, the torso of a lioness, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Unlike other gods who might show mercy, Ammut showed none. When a soul failed the weighing of the heart, Ammut would immediately devour it completely. This wasn't just death, it was absolute annihilation. The soul ceased to exist entirely, erased from all realms, unable to be reborn or remembered. For the Egyptians, who believed deeply in the afterlife, this represented the ultimate horror, not just dying, but being utterly destroyed. The Egyptians were so terrified of Ammut that they developed elaborate burial rituals, expensive mummification processes, and detailed guidebooks like the Book of the Dead, all desperate attempts to avoid this cosmic monster. Every Egyptian knew that no amount of wealth or power could save them from Ammut if their heart proved unworthy. This fear shaped their entire civilization. The threat of soul annihilation motivated Egyptians to live moral lives, follow religious laws, and invest enormous resources in preparing for death. Ammut didn't just judge the dead, she controlled how the living behaved. The brother who murdered a god. How could divine beings commit acts so brutal that they shocked other gods? The story of Seth and Osiris reveals the darkest family drama in Egyptian mythology. Seth, god of chaos and destruction, couldn't bear that his brother Osiris ruled Egypt in peace and prosperity. Consumed by jealousy, Seth plotted the perfect murder. Seth tricked Osiris into lying down in a beautiful chest, claiming it was a gift. The moment Osiris was inside, Seth slammed the lid shut and sealed it with molten lead. He then threw the chest into the Nile River, watching as his brother drowned in agony while trapped in what became his coffin. But Seth's cruelty didn't end there. When Osiris's wife Isis managed to recover the body and began preparing it for burial, Seth discovered her efforts. In a rage, he hacked Osiris's body into 14 pieces and scattered them across Egypt. ensuring his brother could never be properly buried or resurrected. This act of dismemberment was considered the ultimate desecration in Egyptian culture. By destroying the body, Seth was attempting to prevail Osiris from reaching the afterlife, essentially trying to murder his brother's soul as well as his body. The brutality of this divine fratricide sent shockwaves through the Egyptian pantheon. Even other gods were horrified by Seth's action. The myth explains why Seth became associated with everything Egyptians feared: chaos, violence, storms, and destructive forces of the desert. The magic so powerful it challenged the sun god. What magic could be so strong that it forced the most powerful god to reveal his greatest secret? Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, possessed supernatural abilities that even impressed the other deities. But her most shocking feat involved directly challenging Ra, the supreme sun god himself. Ra guarded his true name as his greatest secret, because knowing a god's true name granted power over them. Isis desperately wanted this knowledge to protect her son Horus and strengthen her own magic, so she devised a plan that demonstrated the terrifying extent of her abilities. Isis collected Ra's saliva as it dripped from his mouth during his daily journey across the sky. She mixed this divine saliva with earth to create a magical serpent, the first venomous snake ever created. She placed this serpent along Ra's daily path, where it bit him and injected him with a deadly venom. The poison was so powerful that it began killing the immortal sun god. Ra writhed in agony as the venom coursed through his divine body, experiencing pain unlike anything he had ever felt. The other gods watched in terror as their supreme deity weakened and began to die. Isis appeared and offered to heal Ra, but only if he revealed his true name to her. Desperate and dying, Ra initially tried to deceive her by offering false names. But the poison continued its deadly work, and finally, Ra was forced to whisper his true name into Isis's ear. The moment she heard it, Isis gained unprecedented power. She healed Ra, but kept his true name as her secret weapon. This bold act proved that Isis possessed magic strong enough to threaten even the king of the gods. This story reveals the dangerous nature of divine magic in Egyptian belief. Magic wasn't just about healing or protection, it was a weapon that could topple gods and reshape the cosmic order. The eternal war between order and chaos. Why did the ancient Egyptians believe their entire world depended on a cosmic battle that raged every single night? Every night, as Ra journeyed through the underworld in his solar boat, he faced his greatest enemy, Apophis, a colossal serpent representing primordial chaos. This wasn't just mythology to the Egyptians. They believed this battle determined whether the sun would rise each morning. Apophis possessed a terrifying power. His gaze could hypnotize gods, freezing them with cosmic fear. Every night, as Ra's boat entered the underworld, Apophis would emerge from the depths and fix his mesmerizing stare on the solar deity and his accompanying gods. One by one, they would fail under the serpent's spell, unable to move or defend themselves. Only Seth, the god of violence and chaos, proved immune to Apophis's hypnotic power. Ironically, Seth's evil nature made him the perfect defender against an even greater evil. Night after night, Seth would stab Apophis with his spear, driving back the cosmic serpent and allowing Ra to continue his journey. The Egyptians believed that if Seth ever failed in this task, Apophis would devour Ra and plunge the world into eternal darkness. The sun would never rise again, crops would never grow, and all life would end in frozen chaos. This nightly battle explains why the Egyptians developed such elaborate sunrise ceremonies and why they considered each dawn a divine miracle. They weren't just celebrating a new day, they were celebrating Ra's victory over cosmic annihilation. The god who sculpted reality from thought. What if creation itself began not with physical action, but with the power of divine thought and speech? Unlike other creation myths involving cosmic battles or emerging from primordial waters, the god Ptah accomplished something far more sophisticated and terrifying. He created reality itself through pure thought and divine words. Ptah was depicted as a mummified figure with only his hands visible, holding a staff that combined symbols of life, stability, and power. This unusual appearance reflected his unique method of creation. While other gods required physical materials or sexual generation to create, Ptah simply thought the world into existence. The Memphis creation myth describes how Ptah conceived everything in his heart, which Egyptians considered the seat of intelligence, and then spoke it into reality through divine words. Mountains, rivers, animals, humans, and even other gods came into being simply because Ptah willed them to exist. This concept was so advanced that it influenced later religious traditions, including the biblical account of creation through divine speech. But the Egyptian version contained a darker implication. If Ptah could think the world into existence, he could also think it out of existence. The priests of Memphis, Egypt's first capital, taught that Ptah was the ultimate creator god, superior even to Ra and Amun. They claimed that all other gods were merely aspects of Ptah's infinite creative power, manifested through his divine thoughts. Craftsmen and artists especially revered Ptah, believing he had gifted them with creative abilities that mirrored his own cosmic creativity. The high priest of Ptah's temple held the title Great Leader or Craftsman, emphasizing the god's role as the divine architect of reality. The judge who weighed hearts and souls. How could ancient Egyptians believe their eternal fate depended on the weight of their own heart? The judgment of the dead in ancient Egypt involved a process so precise and terrifying that it made modern legal systems look simple. Every soul entering the afterlife faced a trial that determined not just their fate, but their very existence. The ceremony took place in the Hall of Two Truths, presided over by Osiris, god of the underworld, but the real judge was Ma'at, goddess of truth and justice, whose single ostrich feather held the power to grant eternal life or complete annihilation. The deceased heart was removed and placed on a scale opposite Ma'at's feather. The god Anubis, with his jackal head and supernatural senses, operated the scales with perfect precision. Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, recorded every detail of the proceedings. But before the weighing, the soul faced an even more challenging test. 42 judges, each representing a different sin, questioned the deceased. The soul had to declare innocence of each specific transgression. I have not stolen, I have not murdered, I have not been violent, and dozens of other declarations. If the heart weighed more than the feather, heavy with sin and guilt, Ammut, the soul devourer, immediately consumed it. But if the heart proved pure and light, the soul passed to Osiris for final evaluation and entry into the eternal afterlife. This judgment system reveals the sophisticated Egyptian understanding of morality and personal responsibility. They believed that every action, every thought, every choice literally added weight to the heart. A lifetime of selfishness, cruelty, or dishonesty would make the heart heavy with spiritual corruption. The hidden god who almost became the only god. What if ancient Egypt had almost become the world's first monotheistic civilization, thousands of years before Judaism or Christianity? Amun, whose name means the hidden one, achieved something unprecedented in ancient religion. He nearly absorbed all other gods into himself, almost transforming Egyptian polytheism into monotheism. Starting as a minor Theban deity, Amun's power grew as the city of Thebes rose from an insignificant village to Egypt's capital. But Amun's ascension involved more than political success. He began absorbing other gods' identities, powers, and roles. His most significant merger occurred with Ra, the supreme sun god. The combined deity Amun-Ra represented both the hidden force behind creation and the visible power of the sun. This fusion created a god so powerful that other deities became mere aspects of his infinite nature. Egypt stood on the brink of abandoning its traditional polytheism for worship of one supreme deity. This transformation reached its peak during the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, who attempted to establish true monotheism by worshipping only the Aten, another form of the solar deity. Though Akhenaten's religious revolution failed, it demonstrated how close Egypt came to fundamentally changing world religion, the eternal legacy of divine terror. The ancient Egyptian gods weren't the serene, benevolent deities often depicted in modern popular culture. They were complex, powerful, and often terrifying beings whose actions shaped not just religious belief, but the entire structure of one of history's greatest civilizations. Yet perhaps most shocking of all is how these ancient beliefs continue to influence our modern world. The concept of moral judgment after death, the weighing of souls, divine resurrection, and the eternal struggle between good and evil. All these ideas that seem fundamental to later religions first appeared in the temples and tombs of ancient Egypt. These weren't just stories to the Egyptians, they were the fundamental laws governing existence itself.